Hey, it's James, Fathers Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got custody. I want to talk about the four H's that I like to use. These four words that begin with the letter H. When somebody's accusing me of something or talking crazy about me and it's over the top and ridiculous. So, for example, my daughter's mother, I had custody of my daughter for 20 years and she still stays with me. And now the mom is starting to get to know her. But after years of abandonment, and me raising the child, the mother would say something crazy like, I don't think James is taking care of our child good enough while, because he's in court so much. She totally abandoned the child and wasn't even visiting her or talking to her, had the nerve to say, I'm not taking care of the child. So, and then she would say stuff like, oh, I'm afraid James is going to become violent with anybody he disagrees with. So, after years and years of me not being violent, they continue to say I'm going to become violent. So what I would say is, look at this histrionic, over-the-top hyperbole and hysteria. They're full of hot air. Now, histrionic disorder is actually a mental disorder where you're just over-the-top, dramatic, theatrical, and, hyperbole and hysteria is what it is. I'll say this person's in their actions and their claims are indicative of someone who's a paranoid schizophrenic. I had a guy who I was dealing with. The mother was letting him see the kid after they separated. She moved out, letting him see the kid. We act like women own children, but he was seeing the kid like once a week for an overnight, and she was only like 1 year old. And one day he decided to get on the offensive and file court papers, and instead of dropping the kid off, he pulled up to her house, had somebody come out and hand her paperwork. And she was living with her dad. Her dad called cussing the dad out. So the maternal grandfather called cussing this dad out I was working with. She called screaming and raving. Then she called the cops. And unlike most of you that are afraid of keeping your own kid when there's no court order, this guy had the balls to do it. And the cops came over and he said, everything's fine, goodbye. And they had to leave because he knew how to talk to the cops. Because he learned information that I shared with him about how to talk to the cops. And I got videos on here I got a specific video on YouTube talking about how to deal with the cops, but nobody wants to watch it because everybody would rather stay in their little paranoid, schizophrenic, I'm terrified of the cops, I'm terrified of my baby's mom, I bow down and worship her, she owns the child, and she's my slave master, and I'm the slave, and she owns me, and she's my mommy too mentality, where you think that you can't act like the father of your own kid. You just had the kid, for the full weekend, or before you guys broke up, you were taking the kid to the park every weekend. And now you're afraid to take the kid to the park because the mother said you can't take the kid to the park. And you think it's the law that you have to obey her and worship her and bow down and, and follow her instructions and her lead as if she owns you and the child or as if she's your mommy. But this guy stood up to the cops and they went away. But then the mother comes to court and says, well, he was applying diaper rash ointment and kissing our daughter on the lips too much, basically accusing him of molesting the kid. And she just got done letting him have the kid overnight. But then she comes to court and says, oh, he's molesting the kid. And so what happened was she went to the emergency courtroom with these allegations, and then she bullied the father's attorney, he got an attorney, into surrendering and agreeing outside of court. And I was like, dude, take him to court and go in there and tell them how over the top and crazy that is. So that was the beginning of the case. She ended up settling practically, with 60-40, almost 50-50, and would give the kids over to him. But so that would be an example of somebody being histrionic, over the top, with a bunch of hysterical hyperbole. So I take their little buzzwords against me and turn around and use my own buzzwords, and they're, it's kind of like a poker game. Like, you throw in some chips and you raise the other side. Well, they just claim something against you. Well, I'll throw in my chips and I'll raise you this hysterical, histrionic, hyperbole, and over-the-top hot air. And you're acting like somebody's a paranoid schizophrenic, or you're all over the map. You just let me have the kid the other day, and now you're saying I'm a child molester, I'm an abuser, I'm mentally ill, I'm crazy. So either you endanger children and you don't have good judgment, or you're lying and committed perjury and abusing the system against me and trying to make a mockery of those people who are actual victims and trying to get a restraining order when women fought for decades to try and get these protections in place, and you're making a mockery of real victims who are afraid to even go to court. So those are the type of things that I say. They come in with some emotional hysteria. Your stupid jackass punk sissy coward attorney says, Well, don't say anything bad about her lying and committing perjury and that she's a monster and mentally ill and she's withholding the child. Don't say anything bad about that. Just sit back and take it. And hopefully you'll win because you're sitting silent and you're obeying the mother and you're a good little boy in court. When has that ever worked for anybody in court? Oh, I'm not going to show proof that I'm innocent, or I'm not going to show proof that they're lying, or I'm suing a doctor for malpractice, but I don't want to make him look really bad, so I won't show all the evidence. Who does that in court? Only men in family court proceedings where they sit back and take it. I get on the offensive and clap back or slap them back. And then I take it to another level. Look at this person. She's acting like a mentally ill, paranoid schizophrenic. Look at this hysterical, histrionic, over-the-top hot air. And she's so histrionic, she looks like somebody with histrionic disorder. The court should do a mental health evaluation on her. Then in situations like that, the mother's like, oh my God, he's standing up to me. I can't believe it. Maybe I should just work this out with him, which happens a lot because a guy gets on the offensive. So the 4 H's.